Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Monica. Today, let's discuss a very important topic, that is systematic review. So let's begin with the Cochrane definition of systematic review. A systematic literature review attempts to identify, appraise, and synthesize all the empirical evidence that meets pre-specified eligibility criteria to answer a given research question. Here, identify means to look for all the research papers or studies on a certain topic. Appraise means to look if the studies are of good quality. Synthesize means taking the important information from all the studies and to combine it. Whereas the pre-specified eligibility criteria, it means that few conditions would be decided before starting the review about which studies would be included in the review. So whenever we decide to conduct a systematic review, whether it is quantitative, qualitative or both, we need to follow a set of steps. So let's understand what the Cochrane Handbook for Systematic Reviews of Intervention states about the characteristics of systematic review. Coming to the first point, it means that systematic review is started by forming a focused research question and setting specific criteria to determine which studies would be included in the review. The second point, it means that the methods are clearly structured and they are documented to allow the review to be replicated by others. Third point, it means that a thorough search is conducted in various search engines to identify all the relevant studies that meet the inclusion criteria. Fourth point, it means that quality of the included studies is evaluated for its reliability by using the risk of bias tools. Fifth point, it means that results of the included studies, they are going to be organized and combined in a structured way to answer the review question. So let's understand the steps in systematic review. The first one is to frame questions for the review. Second one is to identify relevant work. Third one is to assess the quality of the studies. Fourth one is to summarize the evidence. Fifth one is to interpret the findings. So a systematic review is started after generating a hypothesis. So what does a hypothesis mean? Basically, it means the starting idea which we can test with experiments or research, which is known as scientific hypothesis, or we can use it as a starting point to guide the idea, that is a working hypothesis. So what to search after generating a hypothesis? For example, in this, the hypothesis is to investigate the effectiveness of fluoride varnish in preventing dental caries in children. Here, these are the important words or keywords which are used in different combination in the search engine to answer this hypothesis. So where to search? So there are various search engines such as PubMed, Medline, Web of Science, Science Direct, Scopus, also Google Scholar and Cochrane Library, where we can use our keywords and find the relevant articles which can meet the inclusion criteria. So next is to manage the finding. So after a meticulous search by two independent reviewers, only the full text versions of studies must be sought out for inclusion in the review, and only those articles which meet the inclusion criteria must be selected and used for data assessment. So excluded studies must be recorded and a third party must resolve if any disagreement is present between the reviewers. So next is to interpret the findings. So a systematic review helps to check how good the original studies are, finds limitations in the studies, and suggests how future research on similar topics can be improved. So this is a brief overview of structuring the review, which contains abstract, introduction, methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. So starting with the abstract, it gives a brief background about the research question. It states the aims or hypothesis. It summarizes the methods of searching the relevant articles. It summarizes the quantitative results from the selected articles and draws a conclusion from the results. So next is the introduction. It mainly consists of available literature in the area of research question. It clearly states the aim of the research question, and it is also important to identify and justify the need for the review and state its relevance. So coming to the methods, it mainly talks about the keywords and the search strategy used to find the relevant articles, the inclusion and the exclusion criteria, how the studies were screened by the reviewers, and how the data was extracted, how disagreements of inclusion was decided between the reviewers, the quality assessment method used, and the statistical analysis of the study. So next is the result. For this, a flowchart is used to show how many studies were included or excluded at each step in the review process for quantitative research. So a summary of key details of the included studies is created, such as the total number of studies, type of studies, participants' age, and few other characteristics, and a mean and median, etc. also are also mentioned in the result. So next is the discussion. So the opening of this section mainly states the main findings of the result. It aims to integrate different studies and highlights if there is any contradictory data to the results of the study used in the review. So main purpose of discussion is to identify and discuss the limitations of the studies included in the review. So last one is the conclusion. It should mention the novel findings that the review adds to the literature. It should also state the quality and if there is any limitation present in the literature so that we can improve the future study design. Also, if the systematic review is poorly conducted, it can mislead any other researcher. If you have found the content useful, please like and subscribe the channel.